Call to order the meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge for Monday, August 28th. Can I ask the gentleman in the red shirt to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
And who is that?
Which red shirt? Or there.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good.
Case more well.
Like 60 years.
You have to sign? No, it's not sign sheet.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis?
Here.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Trustee Pavesa?
Here.
Trustee Snyder?
Here.
Trustee Mattal?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Mayor Grasso?
Here.
All here.
That takes us to, there's nothing under presentations and public hearings tonight, so that takes us to item 4, the consent agenda. We're going to pull 8D from the consent agenda. Okay, with that, an item shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any one trustee or anyone present at the meeting. Those items marked with an asterisk are considered the consent agenda. A roll call shall be taken on the approval of the consent agenda and recorded in the minutes as an omnibus vote. If an item is removed from the consent agenda, it will be discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5, minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of July 24, 2023. B, receive and file plan commission meeting of August 7, 2023. C, receive and file plan commission meeting of August 21, 2023. And D, receive and file stormwater management committee meeting of August 8, 2023. 6, ordinances. B, approval of an ordinance amending a special use for a child care center in the L1 Light Industrial District, Z09, 2023, 6880 North Frontage Road, Aller, Premier, Illinois, Burr Ridge, LLC. C, approval of an ordinance approving an extension of a variation from section 11C, 11A of the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance to eliminate the requirement for a perimeter landscape area on the rear lot line of a property and for an extension of a variation from section 4.1.2 to permit parking spaces within a required 8-foot side yard setback, V04 2018 150 Shore Drive, Petrov. D, approval of an ordinance amending section 3.5 of chapter 3 entitled Commissions, Boards, and Committees of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code. E, approval of an ordinance authorizing the disposition of surplus property of the Village of Burr Ridge. That takes us to 7A, resolutions. A, approval of a resolution approving a subdivision fence replacement and expansion for the Tartan Ridge of Burr Ridge subdivision. 8, considerations. B, approval to direct staff to prepare an ordinance granting approval of final streetscape designs for the Village Center Entertainment District. C, approval to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance relating to the definition of family, Z08 2023. E, approval of various reappointments to village committees and commissions. F, approval to rename the Street Policy Committee as the Street and Pathway Committee and to appoint certain persons to said committee. G, approval to disband the Bicycle Commission. H, approval of vendor list dated August 14, 2023 for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $194,329.12 for all funds, plus $226,305.20 for payroll period ending July 22, 2023 for a grand total of $420,634.32. And I, approval of vendor list dated August 28, 2023 for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $722,042.44 for all funds, plus $230,107.30 for the payroll period ending August 5, 2023 for a grand total of $952,149.74. With that, can I get a motion for the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, B, C, and D, 6B, C, D, E, 7A, 8B, C, E, F, G, H, and I.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion at the board level? Is there any discussion from the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, that motion passes. That takes us to ordinances. 6A, consideration of an ordinance amending section 35.11.800 of chapter 35 entitled Motor Vehicles of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a consideration to amend our municipal code regarding certain traffic regulations that are presently in place. As you may know, whenever we put up things like stop signs or we direct motorists to go down or not go down certain parts of the village, that's actually an act of the board to dictate that that local rule is put in place in our municipal code. Section 35 of our municipal code is where all these rules are housed. That's the traffic section of the motorist vehicle part of our ordinances. So over the past year, staff's been working with the Chasemore community, specifically its HOA, but also some of its residents. We've been studying traffic and pedestrian conditions in the Chasemore HOA, or the Chasemore subdivision, I should say. We've been looking at concerns regarding vehicle speed and volume, as well as understanding sight lines and pedestrian safety issues which may be present in the subdivision. After some thorough consideration, staff has identified with the assistance of the Chasemore HOA several improvements which are recommended to alleviate these concerns, but several of which require amendments to section 35 of the municipal code. The first and probably most impactful is that traffic will be prohibited if the ordinance is approved to proceed northbound on Chasemore Drive between 79th Street and Lincolnshire Drive between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. on weekdays, and then southbound on Chasemore Drive between Lincolnshire or the Pace Lot to 79th Street between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. So again, no northbound traffic on Chasemore Drive in the mornings, no southbound traffic on Chasemore Drive in the evenings. This prohibition would extend to all motorists, including residents of the Chasemore HOA subdivision. The intent of these prohibitions is to reduce the volume of vehicles traveling in this area. This is likely the busiest non-arterial road we have in the village. It has over 2,000 vehicles per day going through there, which is a pretty significant amount of cars considering the size of the street and the length that it is in our community. So how we would do this is signage would be erected along 79th Street and Lincolnshire Drive indicating these traffic pattern changes, so no left, no right turn on 79th, and the same for Lincolnshire Drive near the Pace Bus terminus, where the left turn exists at the end of Lincolnshire Drive. We'll end up noting these traffic changes on notable traffic apps, Google, Apple Maps, to make sure that motorists not familiar with our village are aware of these changes, so you're directed around them naturally. When these things happen, there's an educational period of 30 days being required after these changes are legally adopted. So if the rule is adopted and the signs are erected, we would then begin a 30-day educational period to warn motorists, give warnings that, hey, these rules have changed. We understand that they were not in place until now, but it's an educational period, after which time the police department would conduct enforcement activities in the form of citations if further violations are observed in these areas. The second item is center line road striping shall be painted on Lincolnshire Drive to better orient drivers as to the intended navigational patterns at the intersection of Lincolnshire Drive and Chasemore Drive. Both the village and local Chasemore residents have noticed that many motorists have a tough time understanding the severity of the left turn on Lincolnshire Drive, as well as the fact that Chasemore does not extend into the Pace Lot. We have observed motorists who go directly from Chasemore Drive into the Pace Lot going the wrong way into the parking lot. It can be a very dangerous situation. So we think that the striping will help with this to orient drivers of the curve of the road. This will happen as soon as contractor availability is obtained in 2023. We think this will be inexpensive at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, we're using downtown business district funds to pay for this improvement. The third item would be a temporary painted crosswalk shall be created connecting the pathway along Lincolnshire Drive to the multi-use pathway between Chasemore and Ombrion subdivisions. The painting will occur at the same time as the striping will occur, and in 2024, we're asking that the board commit to reorienting these two sidewalks to better align. as part of our capital program next year. That would require a little bit more money than striping would, but it would not be severely expensive. At the same time, we want to plan those things accordingly, and so again, we'll do them in spring or summer of 2024. Just to give you a better idea of kind of what I'm talking about here, this is an overhead view of the Lincolnshire Drive and Chasemore Drive subdivision. As you can see, there's a, albeit crudely painted yellow line there in the middle there, but the yellow line would go in about that area. As you can see, the Lincolnshire pathway on the, what we'll call the north side of that road, does not line up with the multi-use pathway that's currently in place behind Chasemore and between Ombrions. Those crosswalks should line up, should be a straight shot across the road. So as you can see, there'll be a temporarily painted crosswalk there. Ultimately, we'll do a better job of reorienting those two pathways in spring 2024 as stated. We're planning on doing a number of other improvements in the area that do not require board approval, such as erecting signs, the most notable of which is the prohibition on trucks over 5 tons. That is a village-wide residential ban, but because there's a preponderance of additional trucks there going to the downtown, we're going to repost those signs in those areas just to make sure it's very clear that you can't be driving semi-trucks through that area, et cetera. Certainly if someone was moving, that would be permitted. That's a local use, something that's there for the residents' benefit, that would be permitted, but otherwise heavy trucks are not permitted in that area, and we'll be posting signs to that extent. We'll also be posting a few advisory speed signs, 10, 15 mile an hour around curves, just to give the idea that there is a better indication of curves in the area. There is some undulation in the road. We would like to better note those for the record. We're recommending these improvements be implemented as part of a pilot study to last for 1 year or until we receive an official zoning petition for the TCF property, whichever comes first. The TCF property is located essentially adjacent to the Chasemore subdivision to the north. We understand that whatever comes on that property will eventually need to have a traffic study anyway, and so if that were to come in sooner than the 1 year pilot program ends, we would certainly take that into account and make that study automatic at that point. We'll be deploying low-profile traffic analysis technologies to analyze volume and speed data of motorists along Chasemore Drive. We've already performed a number of these tests and have a pretty idea of what the before and after analysis will be, considering we have good before data. Looking forward to seeing what the after analysis will be. I do want to note Chasemore HOA has officially requested that we consider the potential addition of gates on Chasemore Drive in some capacity to further assist with traffic calming. Staff does not recommend this at this time, but we do think this is an important part of the ultimate pilot study to see if those are warranted in the future. There's a lot I've thrown at you here. I'm recommending the ordinances be approved and you support the other administrative measures and commitments as discussed. Myself and Chief are here to help answer questions from the board as well as the public that may be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Evan. The way we handle this is that first we get comments and questions from the board, and then I'll open it up to the public. So, starting with the trustees, anyone have any questions or comments? Yes?
How many residents are there in Chasemore?
100% shared.
500.
200 condos, about 500 residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Russ?
So a couple thoughts. I definitely agree with having restrictions on trucks. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I definitely think we should have signage up there. I am a little bit concerned about the restriction of hours because I hope our residents know that applies to all of us. So if we limit traffic from 4 to 6 and 6 to 9 a.m., that includes buses, snow plows, garbage trucks, and I almost view that how are we going to enforce that? Is our police department going to have other officers there to enforce that restriction? I almost view that as, if we're doing this in stages, I'd like to have that be the last part of the stage and see if we can slow down the traffic, maybe put signage up saying this is for local residents only, something that just says to the general public, this is not a thoroughfare, but I think if we close streets access, that applies to all our residents at Chasemore, as well as snow plows, buses, and garbage trucks. So that's just some commentary from my perspective.
Okay, actually, a couple good comments, but as to garbage pickup, since we only use one service, would garbage service be excluded No?
The only exclusion would be emergency vehicles.
So plows too?
Correct.
Well, can't the board do it in a way to allow garbage pickup since we have only one vendor? And can we also, obviously, heavy snowstorm or something, allow plowing?
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can exempt certain service vehicles, but I'm just not 100% sure.
Service vehicles are going to have to enter during the proper hours. So if it's a morning pickup for garbage, they're going to have to come in from the north end. Residents within Chasemore coming out of their homes can go northbound, southbound. It doesn't matter. This is a turning restriction because many vehicles in the morning coming westbound 79th Street are turning into Chasemore and cutting through to go into the village center, County Line Square, and the office buildings. So this is a turning restriction.
And I've heard that GPS, actually, some GPS, actually directs you that way.
Correct. And once this ordinance is approved, then the proper vendors can be notified that it is not a through street during those times. It
Okay,
should
so-
indicate on their GPS.
So service vehicles such as Groot, we'd have to tell them when they can come and what direction.
I'm not aware of any
Problem
kind of authorization that I can issue or the board can issue to violate those signs.
I don't know. Obviously, we have some people here from Chasemore. At least in my neighborhood, they don't pick up until late afternoon or early mid-afternoon. So I don't know if they actually come between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. So that may not be an issue, but it's a good point to make. But if there was a snowplow situation and a heavy snow, our vehicles can go in there, right? Or they would have to just go the other way.
They have to go the other way.
Okay, but they could
It's
plow
an-
the streets. Okay.
As I explained to the village administrator, it's an enforcement issue for us. When in Illinois, the law has changed. There's many restrictions on law enforcement. When an officer conducts a traffic stop, there are no matter who it is, no matter if a citation is issued or not, there's documentation, there's forms that have to be filled out, which keeps that officer down on that stop. We can't stop a resident and say, oh, you live here? Okay, go ahead. We have to get information, driver's license, everything. Every traffic stop has to be documented. So therefore, this has to go, if this is approved, it's for everybody, police department included.
Okay. Two good points made. Anyone else have any comments yet at the board level? Yes.
I agree with Trustee Smith that enforcement of this, this signage and these turning restrictions will be difficult to manage and take away valuable resources from other police activities that might be more important here in the village. Were there some traffic studies done about the speed, Evan? Did you want to comment on the speeding in the subdivision?
Yes.
Comment on those?
We've taken 3 different traffic studies over the past year. We've used the police trailer on, police trailer off, as well as a manned radar study. So we put our CSO in an unmarked car and performed radar inspections at that point. And essentially what we found is that the vast majority of drivers are not even going the speed limit, under 25 miles an hour. Vast majority defined as over 85% of all motorists are not even hitting the 25 mile an hour mark.
So you mean they're below the speed limit?
They're below the speed limit. We're seeing 2 to 3% of cars be over 31 miles an hour, so 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. So we're not seeing much in the way of speeding at all. It's not necessarily a speed issue, more concerned about volume than speed.
Traffic volume, okay. So this, I know Chief has a lot of experience with this, but this recalls a situation in Oak Brook where Spring Road is blocked off on a gate with a gate
Yes.
from the certain periods of time during rush hour, say in the evening between 4 and 6 p.m. or 5 and 7 p.m., whatever it is, northbound or southbound on Spring Road, and the northbound is blocked off. So you can't, physically can't go that direction unless you physically go around the gate. So that's something to be considered as well. I'm sure the chief can talk to that gate as well.
Funny enough.
Well, a gate, someone's got to pull that gate out
That's right.
and then open it up.
And
And
all weather,
correct.
whether it's been plowed or not.
And that's manpower too,
Yes.
so.
Okay. I received several emails from residents in Chasemore, and one of their comments was about the speed humps, and that the speed humps have a suggested speed limit of 25 miles an hour. Is that correct? Is that what it's called, suggested? It's in orange.
Yes.
So
It's an advisory sign.
advisory, the speed limit of 25 miles an hour. I would suggest that those be changed out to 20 miles an hour or something less. Okay, it's, people see that, they tend to go that speed over the hump, myself included. So I would ask that those be changed out. But I'm struggling with making these turn restrictions as it being effective. So I'd like to hear some of the valuable comments from the residents.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Joe?
I agree with this guy, listen to some of the residents, see what their thoughts are, but the gate situation is, if we're gonna do a gate, you wanna have to put it up and take it down, that should be part of the association, not us. So if someone's gonna go hit the button, pull it up, pull it down at a certain time, we shouldn't have to, it's not participating for the rest of the villagers.
Anyone else? Okay, yes, Chief.
Gate, signage, there still has to be enforcement. So I'm still gonna have officers out there, even if there's a gate. For somebody to violate that, they should be cited. So either way, we're gonna be in the subdivision when we can, enforcing whatever the board decides.
Okay, let's start hearing from the residents of Chasemore. It was my understanding, based on what I've heard, and by the way, your HOA President, John Nitti, was active and called me, and we sat down and talked about this, and he was advising me of some of the issues. I thought it was more speed than volume, but, and I'd like to hear as people come up. Sounds like speed really isn't the issue, statistically at least, and it's volume, but I'd like whoever comes up to address those two issues, along with anything else you want to address. Who wants to be first?
John Nitti,
Hi.
President of Chasemore. Thank you, trustees. Thanks the committee for reviewing everything. Our committee who represented the board in presentations by the police and the development department were Bob Koopman, who's a board member, as well as Randy Grant. We were there, and we acknowledged receipt of all the concerns that the police indicated, and we provided approximately 60 pages of comments to the committee on all of the comments from the Chasemore residents, all the emails, everything that was received by us, so they could review all of it. I think just to make a statement, I think this is a start in terms of a resolution of the volume. Gary, I'm sorry I gave you an impression of speed, but it was more really, well, let me just say this. There have been a number of speeding incidences that have created a problem that have caused the residents to say that there is speed. Unfortunately, the monitoring systems don't necessarily reflect that, but there is a concern as it relates to speed. The other thing was a concern as it related to volume, the amount of traffic and the trucks that were coming through at all hours, early hours mostly. To answer the question about Groot, our pickup generally is between 7 a.m. and no more than 11 a.m. in the morning. So there is some overlap there for Groot to have to figure out a change in what their pattern might be. The other issue was safety, and I can tell you that we have agreed in the meeting to everything that has been presented by Evan this evening. But I do want everyone to acknowledge, and the residents are here to ask the question, what about additional stop signs? What about crosswalks within Chasemore? What about other kinds of neighborhood signage that are all being requested? What about the enforcement of gates? Okay, all of these things the residents are here to make comments to you about, and that's the reason I wanted to at least tell you ahead of time that they are here to talk about those things and why. And in some cases, most of the cases, the committee did explain to us while we were sitting there why stop signs would not be acceptable or crosswalks. But I have to admit that the addition of the crosswalk at Lincolnshire and Chasemore Drive is a great addition, because I even noticed it today. There's a number of people that are using the pathway as well as going into the downtown area. So, as I said, I think this is a start, but I do want you to at least get an opportunity to hear from the residents what their comments are about what you're about to approve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who wants to be second?
Hi, I'm Ken Wettor. I live at 60 Huntington Court.
I'm sorry, could you spell your last name, please?
Wettour.
Thank you.
The police officer made a comment that there was going to be a prohibition on right turns off 79th going northbound onto Chasemore Drive, correct? That implies that the volume of traffic we're trying to slow down is coming east from the east on 79th and cutting through Chasemore to go up to wherever they're going. Conversely, in the evening, it's the opposite of that. So rather than restrict the traffic coming southbound through Chasemore, what if we just put a restriction on turning, no left turn off of Chasemore Drive onto 79th from 4 to 6 p.m.? It would allow us to continue to go back and forth as Chasemore residents. We don't necessarily have to go eastbound on 79th all the time, but we all use Brookhaven, we go Lifetime Fitness, we go to and from the town center. That'd be a big inconvenience for any of us if we live at Chasemore. So if we just restrict the people from turning left off at Chasemore at the 79th at the evening hours, it solved the whole problem for the traffic encouragement.
Okay, so you understand that Ken was suggesting no left turn off Chasemore on to 79th?
Correct.
At the evening hours, whatever the... Okay. Chief, no problem with that, right?
There's restrictions for. The turning restrictions are for cars traveling westbound, you can't turn right in the morning onto Chasemore Drive. If you're traveling westbound, you can't turn left. So it covers that in the morning. So residents, again, maybe I misunderstood, residents are free to go north and southbound when they're leaving their homes and leave the subdivision. From what I observed, from the data that we had over the years, and this just isn't this year, we've been looking into speed complaints for more than 1 year. It is most of the cars that I've seen, when I've personally been out there, are coming westbound and turning in the morning to cut through the subdivision to get into the corporate park.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they're not coming from the west, traveling eastbound. I don't have that data.
So it would be no right turn off of 79th on to Chasemore.
If they're coming westbound, they can go down County Line right into the corporate park. So we were concentrating on people coming from the east, they're traveling westbound, and then rather than coming to County Line, going into the corporate park off County Line, they're just cutting through and Chasemore.
Right. Left, right, and I'm going to get confused myself, but I think everybody's okay with, if you're going westbound on 79th, no right-hand turn at certain hours in the morning onto Chasemore Drive. I think everybody's okay with that one so far. I think Ken just suggested in the evening hours or the later afternoon hours, no left-hand turn from Chasemore going eastbound on 79th. That's what I understood you say, Ken, right?
That's all the traffic.
Just in the evening.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a
Kind of the
count
mirror
on
image of the
going,
traffic problem.
which way.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So this way, then we're not restricting the residents of Chasemore from going in and out by having those
Sure you are.
signs.
You prevent it from turning left.
Well, they still can't.
If they're doing that, but at least allows them to go north and south in the, south in the morning and
Oh, that's it.
north in the morning and south in the evening.
Well, the point is that we're gonna try to restrict the turns for everyone. So if you're in Chasemore, you can't come out and make the left turn. It's at the afternoon hours. And, well, they wouldn't be coming into Chasemore in the morning, but we want to stop. That's the chief problem I've heard for years, is the westbound traffic on 79th making the right turn, cutting through, so to speak, rather than taking County Line Road.
And to
That's the first thing to stop.
And to support what the gentleman said, there are more cars in the evening going southbound. That we know.
Right, and then so if the data supports that, then Ken's idea of no left turn at night would cut that down, because I presume many of those cars are the same ones that came in the morning that way. Right?
Right.
Okay, so we got that so far.
You know, it's a unique street because the residents are close to the street. And when the car is going 30 miles an hour down Chasemore Drive, it looks like it's going fast.
Yeah, yeah.
We've done tests. It really, it looks, there's a perception of high rate of speed.
Okay. All right, let's get somebody else. Yes, come on up. Thank you, Chief. Maybe you better sit in the front row.
I'm gonna hang out.
Hi, thank you for taking my comments. I'm Barbara Annison. I live at 97 Trent. And while I understand that the way it's been proposed, it would be inconvenient for some of us, but we can still go either way out of our drives. I don't think that's so inconvenient, to be honest. I think paramount issue here is safety. And the mayor thankfully intervened in an issue that I had, crossing the street when it might have been going 30 miles an hour. It seemed like a lot more to me, but it looked like it was safe to cross. I'm crossing with my dog, and all of a sudden someone is on me. And I look carefully either way. What they found is this person, he veered into the oncoming traffic lane to avoid me, rolled down his window on the passenger side, and swore at me and told me that I'm jaywalking. And while I didn't appreciate the threat and the way he spoke to me, I did understand his perspective, because from his perspective, there aren't any residents that are crossing. There's no crosswalks. There's no stop signs. He wasn't expecting to see me and my dog because there's no signage anywhere that would indicate that anyone is going to be crossing this street. And from his perspective, why was I crossing the street there? So from his perspective, I should cross the stop sign. There is no stop sign. I should cross at a crosswalk. There are no crosswalks. And while I applaud the fact that you're putting in a crosswalk where you are at Lincolnshire, that's wonderful. You need a stop sign there as well. It's an intersection. It's not a curve. It's an intersection. And if you don't put a stop sign there, I think you're still going to have an issue with people getting near misses on that. And not only have I had these experiences, this is one experience, and again, I appreciate the mayor intervened in that so that the individual was told not to do that any longer, but it was scary, and it's my street. I live on the corner there, and I see this every day. We have residents that are afraid to ride their bikes anymore, to walk their dogs anymore. It's a beautiful community, as you know, and this is a beautiful subdivision, but unless we deal with the speed issue, and I know it might be a perception, but there's been too many times when I and other residents have been doing 25 miles an hour, which is what the speed limit is, and we've been beeped at. I see it out my kitchen window. People are honked at because they're right on their tail, and they pass them. There's a double line. You're not supposed to pass anybody on that street. People are passed often. It is not an unusual experience. And the police can't be there all the time. We have wonderful police, but they can't be in our subdivision all the time. They aren't going to see all these things. We see them every day, and it's scary every day. So the issue of speed, the issue of volume, and the trucks have to be dealt with, but the safety is the issue overall. So thank you for your time.
Okay, next. Sure.
Hello, I'm Greg Beglin, 133 Northgate in Chasemore, and thank you for listening to our concerns and coming up with some solutions. I did want to talk a little bit more about speed, though. I've lived in Chasemore for 2 years, not as long as some of my friends here, but every time I drive on Chasemore, I'm pretty close to around 20, because I just feel, because of the safety of the road, the visibility, and so I guess I'm not surprised that some of the readings were under 25. I really think the appropriate speed limit for that street is 20 when you think about all the various, I think there are 11 different drives that enter Chasemore, none with stop signs, and some of the curves and the sightlines. So that's one thing I'd like the board to consider. It's good to hear that some potential signs might go up for, say, 15 around a curve, which will definitely help my consideration too, and maybe slow down the overall speed. The third thing I wanted to mention is on the bumps, where we do have signs that say 25 on the bump, and whether to put it at 20 or something else, 15. Another idea there is really just put slow speed bump. That's what I've seen at other communities where there's a speed bump, and people can sort of judge how hard they want to hit that or soft, depending on their type of car they're driving. But the intent is really just to slow down traffic. So I really think if you had 20 miles an hour posted a couple spots, slow curve, maybe 15 at a curve, and then slow on the speed bump, that's what I would suggest. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, John Koski, 61 Huntington Court in Chasemore. And again, I'd like to express our thanks for the board taking the time to consider this issue, make sure our community there is safe. What caught my attention in this proposal is the restriction on traffic. As we heard earlier today, there's 500 residents in Chasemore, and any limiting, that's our only way in and out of Chasemore. It is, and it is a thoroughfare. I mean, I have friends who live in Palos who Google Maps routes them through Chasemore Drive to get to Capri. It's just, and as the village center gets more and more populated with restaurants, I think we're gonna see that more and more. I'm just not sure that the traffic restrictions is the right approach, because no matter what, even if, as Ken suggested, my neighbor here suggested, we limit southbound traffic from 4 to 6, well, if I want to run up to Brookhaven and grab my roasted chicken for dinner at 5:32, then I've got to go all the way out and around to get back. And I mean, it's very dramatic to go all the way out and around, but you know, it limits our ingress and egress into our home in a pretty dramatic way, I think, no matter what we do on the traffic restrictions. And if speed, I was glad to hear speed isn't an issue, because it was certainly my perception that people go flying through Chasemore. And I'm wondering if there's certain times of the day when speed is an issue. You know, are the studies? It sounded like it was pretty minimal. But and there's been a lot of great ideas suggested here tonight. So it sounds like being as thoughtful as possible before we put in any traffic changes or pattern restrictions would be my request.
Unless I get the wrong impression, I don't want to get the wrong impression. The board doesn't want the wrong impression. The people in Chasemore want something done. You don't want the status quo, right? It's a matter of whose ox is going to get scored from a perspective. But and I think the proposal has been for no more than a year, and then we'll see what works and doesn't work. But I want to be sure that the baseline is you don't want the status quo, you want something done. And then, and we're going to try to make the best informed choice that we can at this level, but that choice is not etched in stone, it's etched in ordinance, but that can be changed again too. But so something has to be done, and how we decide that is what the issue is tonight.
And just one other thought as you were speaking, Mayor. Is there an option to put crosswalks along Chasemore Drive there? Because I've always lived on the east side of Chasemore Drive, which means I don't have a sidewalk, and as the woman spoke earlier, if I want to go for a walk in the morning, my only option is to cross Chasemore Drive to get to a sidewalk, because there's only a sidewalk on the west side of Chasemore Drive there.
One moment, please.
Yeah, sure.
So either crosswalks along Chasemore where the cul-de-sacs feed into Chase?
Are you saying crosswalks or sidewalks?
Crosswalk.
I don't know that there's enough room along
Well,
Chasemore on the one side to put sidewalks.
So let me.
Sidewalks will cost you money.
So let me.
Crosswalks maybe not so much.
Let's work through that issue. That's a fair comment that I've heard a couple times,
Yeah.
and I just want to make sure we're talking about the same stuff.
Yep.
So this is the west side of Chasemore, and this is the east side of Chasemore. Are we talking about moving from the west to the east? Just asking an information-seeking question.
Yeah, that looks, yep.
Okay. The reason why crosswalks are not legally supported by current traffic standards is because there's nowhere for these things to really end. If you're crossing from a sidewalk to a street, or a street to a street, You see how this is marked here? That is an ADA mark to transition going from sidewalk to sidewalk, much the same way that the Lincolnshire to the multi-use pathway would be. If there were another sidewalk here, but there is not, that would be a very easy improvement to make. The other thing I've heard a lot about is stop signs. Stop signs are challenging from an enforcement perspective or a calming perspective, because you usually do not use 4 ways to do calming. That is because what eventually happens is people get used to the size of the stop signs and they assume that the stop sign will be stopped at, and you get someone who blows through there. And it's a very easy thing that you see a lot of T-bone accidents in. People assume the other car will stop and they don't, because the stop sign is sort of a false sense of security. That's the short answer. That's a technical answer. I'm certainly not trying to use the MUTCD traffic book against anyone's perspectives, but the general rule is the village has never made, we'll call it a street connect to a street in a crossing fashion like that. Even on busy sidewalks where we have, like on the 79th Street side, where we just put up signs, we did have some markings there, but it's a sidewalk crossing to a sidewalk. It is a busy street, but it is still a pathway crossing to another pathway. So that's the short answer why crosswalks across Chasemore are challenging right now, just because they don't have a point A and a point B.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to comment on what you say, but I need a laser pointer. Please.
I have one.
Yay. So what about this? I can get this to work.
Use the light bulb. It's on the other end.
The other end.
Don't look at it.
Yeah, don't blind
Not
yourself.
looking at it. There we go. So, to make this compliant, we would make a T sidewalk here, paint this crosswalk here, make another sidewalk here, right angle into this street here.
That's fine. I could do that.
That way they can have their crosswalks, because I understand that they're trying to cross.
Yeah, well, I want to be clear.
To get to the sidewalks, so they're safe on the sidewalk, but they have to cross the traffic, and people aren't expecting people out in the road.
Yeah, I want to be clear. We're not against that. We also want to be clear that that's on Chasemore property, and we would have to work with them to understand how that would work. But that's certainly an option we'd be happy to consider.
And would one suffice? I mean, Chasemore's fairly
No,
long.
they want a series of them.
Right.
Yeah. So how many streets would we be how many crosswalks would we be talking about? 6?
11, yes, 6?
6. So 12 sidewalk modifications to accommodate 6 crosswalks.
That should deter speedy traffic anyway if there are that many crosswalks.
We would hope.
We would hope.
But at least again, we're about safety. It's
Yes.
safety of the residents, so they can cross the street to get to the sidewalk, so they can go to the village center, go to 79th Street safely.
And the one other thought I'd like to share, if I may, is with the village center becoming more populated, people are back to work in Pace Bus and the restaurants and what have you, are we running the risk that we're just squeezing the balloon here? So we're going to restrict traffic on Chasemore Drive, and then on the frontage road there that spills off into Wolf, is all of a sudden that going to be used as the primary ingress and egress to get into the Burr Ridge Center, and then you're going to have the same problem over there. So
When the village center was first conceived, it was thought that a bridge would be needed at 71st Street, not 72nd, 71st Street, over to right where the entrance to 294 South is. And the volume never came to fruition, so that was never done. But we are going, at some point, going to develop TCF property there. And that hopefully will increase traffic downtown, and but it's still not going to come through Chasemore, so we're going to have to push it to the roads that are supposed to handle it anyhow, but it's not for Chasemore Drive.
well, thank you for listening.
Sure. Next.
Hi, my name is Jack Frederickson, and I live on Chasemore Drive, Burr Ridge Grand Prix. Couple of thoughts. Number one, speed bumps there. are for people who have never driven there before. Anybody who's gone over those speed bumps will know that it doesn't inhibit speed at all. I'm hard pressed to believe that 3 out of 100 cars are the only ones who are speeding. You might be right. I don't have I don't have any kind of a radar gun or anything like that, but I know that there are a number of cars that I've seen that especially enjoy going fast. Second thing is, I'm not comfortable with, I encourage you to adapt what you folks have come forth with so quickly. Give it a shot. I don't think the idea of just restricting a left turn off of Chasemore Drive, certain hours going to do it, because there's the pay slot. That's a bucket of cars. That's a bucket of cars, people who are anxious to get home after work. Those people are in a hurry, a lot of them. They're not poking along. They've been working all day downtown. They're tired. They want to get home. They want to eat. They want to watch TV, whatever they want to do. So I think that just some of those people, and I have no data to support this either, are going to turn eastbound once they go the length of Chasemore Drive and they get to 79th Street. They're not all going west at that hour. But again, I have no idea what those numbers are, but they're trying to avoid having to go through Burr Ridge Parkway and then going to County Line, south on County Line, and then going west on that when they get to 79th Street. So I think your best shot is what you came up with. I think you ought to try it. Again, it's not cast in stone, as you pointed out. Give it the year. It's a volume issue, and it is a speed issue. And I noticed that kids, and I brought this up at a previous meeting I attended, kids on electric scooters, okay, they're out there. And, and I've seen a couple of close calls. I haven't seen you being yelled at, but I've been yelled at. I don't know if I get yelled at. But, I see Chasemore Drive, now that I know that it's the busiest street in Burr Ridge. I think we ought to err on the side of caution. I think we ought to adapt this excellent proposal. Give it a shot. Give it a year. And if it doesn't work the way that the Chasemore residents think, and you think, then we'll come back and storm the barricades and say, hey, look, let's have an argument about this, but let's give it a year. You're not doing anything, you're not recommending anything drastic. In terms of my inconvenience, I go north on Chasemore Drive before these restricted hours and during these restricted hours. I don't think my life is going to be radically affected if I have to go south on Chasemore Drive, hang a right, and then go to County Line Road on 79th, and then go north to Brookhaven to buy chicken goods that I shouldn't be getting anyway at that hour, right? But the point is that I don't think it's going to inconvenience. Yeah, it's going to take me another five minutes, okay? But damn it, if I get my cookies anyway, I will be so propelled.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So just to make a point, Chasemore residents can go north and south. It's not going to, what's being proposed tonight.
That's not how it's written.
No.
It's all residents.
It's a prohibition on turns.
So if you're already within,
You can go.
you can go either way. That's how I read it.
Yes.
That's how I read it.
Restricts traffic on 79.
It only restricts Chasemore residents
I
when
apologize
you're not in
if
Chasemore.
it's ambiguous, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a turning point restriction at the north and south end. If you're within it, you can make a left or right as you like.
Okay.
My
So-
apologies if it was not clear.
Is there consensus about the proposal that is being discussed tonight? That we try that and see what happens? No. No, yes, okay. Well, I can kind of speak for the board on this one, since no one lives in Chasemore, right? We want to do what you want to do, okay? But if you don't have consensus, it makes it hard on us to make a decision. We can make a decision, that's what we're here for. Okay, so, John, what's the, what?
Let me make a comment, because
Sure.
here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that you need to move forward with what the proposals are as provided at this point, with the one-year situation and a one-year review. What did come up tonight, which wasn't discussed earlier, is the crosswalks, the 6 crosswalks.
gonna
And we
get
need to pursue that, both a combination of your cost, our cost, and getting that accomplished and how we do that. So I
So
would
I'm
make
going
an
to put that
addendum.
aside, because I
Set
think we
aside,
would do
but at this
that.
point, you need to work, you need to approve what has been submitted with the review period of 1 year. And then let us figure out how much complaints we really do have by Chasemore's residents outside of Chasemore being inconvenienced by not getting into Chasemore the way they would like to get into. Because I have heard a number of residents complaining about that concern. But we also reduced the hours from I think we were at 4 to 7, in our original discussions, and we moved it from 4 to 6 so that we wouldn't interfere with the residents coming back from work or something like that. So we did try that method as a method of trying to minimize the impact on the residents.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you as the president of the HOA.
Correct.
Is that the consensus as far as the committee's concerned is to do what has been proposed, and we will also consider the crosswalks separately at the same.
Correct.
Maybe not tonight, but that will be.
We need to consider that as well,
will
yes.
be considered.
That was an excellent suggestion.
But we want, but the consensus from the homeowner association perspective is to pass what's before us.
Is to move forward.
And then you'll handle internally the discrepancies.
We will accumulate the discrepancies and monitor the situation and provide that to the board as well as through your agents. And that's the best way for us, because we have to do something. We can't just not do nothing. That's not an answer for us at
Okay.
all.
Does anybody else want to speak on this
Comments?
that has not spoken yet?
More comments?
Here.
Please.
Yeah, one second. Yeah, trustee Snyder, just.
One thing that I'm in an association in Florida, in the comments for safety in the 20 miles an hour versus 25 miles an hour. If I'm not familiar, if I see the word 2 or the number 2, it could be 25, 20, it was 25. They set with 550 units in the community. They made it 19 miles an hour. It's not 20. It's not, I thought it was 25. It's not 19 miles an hour changed everything. People were driving 15 miles an hour. And everyone in the subdivision, I think it went from a regular community to an almost over 50 community, and it benefited everyone. But a suggestion might be as in the words, instead of using 20, 25, it's a community, your number 1 was safety. Your number 2 is I'm walking my dog, I'm doing this. 19 miles an hour is a very different sign. If I catch 19, you slow down, wait a second, 19. It will, or it had, the first time I saw like 19. You gotta slow down, maybe I should be doing 15. It's just a suggestion to add what some of the residents were speaking.
Sure. So, go ahead.
Well, my name is Mike Harvey. I live at 38 Thornhill Court. My wife and I are here tonight. We're new homeowners. We've only been here a couple months. We support the board, what was said by Mr. Nitti, but I just have a straightforward question for Mr. Walter. If it's a pilot program and a study has yielded the results for this pilot program, is that data information available to the homeowners?
Sure. Absolutely. We're going to be working with the HOA to help continue
so it's through HOA that
absolutely.
we are able to access
100%.
that. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Kevin Duffy. I live at 79 Trent. The only question I have for John is, have they surveyed the entire Chasemore population? Has there been any feedback in mass?
That's not part of us.
Sir, really, you're here to address the board.
Okay.
Okay? And later for that, please.
Okay.
So address the board. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions and listen.
Well, then I'll just say it this way to the board. I appreciate all your efforts. I think it would behoove the Chasemore board to probably get a broader swath of opinions than the ones that they have at this point before you all make a decision on restricting the traffic flow at Chasemore.
Are you alluding that there are Chasemore residents out there that don't support these recommendations?
Well, there's at least one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm being facetious. Yes, I know there are many that I've spoken with that think it's just.
So what do you propose as an alternate then?
I do not have a proposal as an alternate.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? We do need to move this along, so I don't want any more repetition if we can avoid it. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to repeat it. Bill Voigt with 166 Foxborough. This doesn't go to the restrictions or any of that. I totally agree with that. But we were talking a lot about speed and so forth. And you had mentioned 25-mile-an-hour speed humps. Our speed humps are, to me, 40-mile-an-hour speed humps. But on 72nd Street, nobody goes over 25 on 72nd Street. Those speed humps are designed to keep it at that. And if we had one more speed hump right by your house, that would be at the on the north end as they come in. There's two on the south, and then that one in the north. If you had them actually be 25-mile-an-hour speed humps, that would go a long way towards reducing the speed, right? And there is a big difference on 72nd versus ours, right? Right, Chief?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as a quick comment, when we talk about pilot periods, we're talking that we're going to see what these initial changes do and keep every legal option on the table. If another speed hump may be appropriate, we're happy to look into that. We're going to use the entire corridor from the crosswalk that we're building and improving on 79th Street to the new stripes we're putting in on Lincolnshire, understand exactly where we can optimize that corridor. That nothing is taken off the table just because we have not proposed it tonight. Nothing is off the table, from my understanding, tonight only because it's not being approved.
Right.
It's only to understand what changes occur in a vacuum or in real time once these things are approved, if they are approved. So we want to continue to work with the residents on these items. These are important items. We appreciate the comments. It's helped our understanding, and we're looking forward to talking more with you.
Okay, I think if there's not any more comments, have you already spoken? No. Okay.
Bob Keichman, I live at 105 Waterside. I appreciate what the board has done, what Evan has done as far as looking at different alternatives. My concern is this only addresses the traffic 20% of the time at best, okay, each day. The other 80% is not addressed, okay? I just want to make sure that once this study is done, that further consideration would be given for gates over at 79th Street. And the gates would be installed by Chasemore, and they would be accessible by emergency vehicles and by village vehicles, okay? I just want to make sure that that's not off the table in the future.
It's not off the table. It was on the table as early as consideration of when the village center was being built.
Okay.
Chasemore, we discussed that at length. I don't think it ever made it into the village center ordinance, but it certainly has been a topic discussed before. There are cons with the pros, but nothing's off the table, as Evan said.
Okay, I just want to make sure that nothing's off the table once the study is completed and so forth. So.
Right. What I'm going to ask politely your homeowners association to do is to continue to discuss this and monitor with us what is going to get passed tonight. And then we don't have to wait a year if it's not working or you have some other ideas. We meet at least once a month, and Evan is here and his staff is here 5 days a week. So continue to meet, continue to discuss this, and bring us your thoughts. You're the residents.
Could Evan actually give us like a quarterly report on what he has or not?
I think you can give him a quarterly report as to how you're seeing it.
I think we can talk as often as we like.
Right.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
On our website, we'll be accumulating experience, not only a survey of how it's going, we'll do that in a survey on our website, and we'll give you.
I don't want to start the precedent of him having to respond to an HOA every quarter. We have a few HOAs in the village.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, if there's any more discussion at the board level, yes?
Yes, question, was the concept of installing a no right turn sign at the exit of the pay slot considered? Between 4 and 7 PM or 4 and 6 PM? No right turn
So I'm going to bring the map up just to clarify.
at the pay slot exit.
So are we talking about the exit there?
Yes.
That's included as part of the ordinance. You cannot leave Pace and go directly into Chasemore on the when the prohibitions are shown.
You have to
And
go
how will
left.
how will that be?
There will be
Signage will be there.
There
for
will be
that?
signage there-ish. I'm using ish, just, I don't have an exact spot, but there will be signage for
Okay.
there. And there'll be signage there indicating that both, call it southbound Lincolnshire and exiting Pace, neither can enter there at those times noted.
Okay, and do you recall when the last bus leaves Pace?
I do not know that, no.
Last drop off? We may want to coordinate our timing with that. Thank you.
And then somebody mentioned a stop sign there.
There?
Yeah, stop sign
What does that do?
coming out. Northbound, right?
Happy to look at that as
And
well,
we'll look
but
at
it's
that
not
too.
currently proposed.
I agree, it is an intersection.
Yeah. It's a, anybody else? Joe?
I'd like you to consider putting 19 miles an hour and being done. This way it salvages or puts the situation of safety.
Every idea that's been
Everyone
mentioned
will be
will be
looking 19 miles an hour. It's unusual. It'll slow them down. It does
I
work.
tend to agree with you. People, there is a study that
Slow them
19
down.
is a significant difference, not 20. Yes, Russ?
Evan, can you put 6A, number 1? This seems pretty clear as day to me. It states, "This prohibition shall extend to all motorists, including residents of Chasemore."
I'm sorry, that is
As
meant.
written, that is meaning they can't move.
That's meaning to say that the left and the right on 79th or the southbound on Lincolnshire, they are included from breaking that. But if you're leaving, I'm going to Trent, Foxborough, Easton, to go left and right out of those, call it drive aisle streets, they may go left and right there.
Inside.
But you are correct that under this one-year pilot, a Chasemore resident coming westbound on 79th at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday may not go right into Chasemore. They would have to go all the way around. So I think that may be the ambiguity that I did not clearly write in there, so I apologize.
How's the chief supposed to monitor this?
What we're going to do is
Resident,
try to-
non-resident?
Well,
We don't-
I would only note that the village is full of signs which are regularly abided by the average motorist, and once the signs go up, there'll be an educational period, and then there'll be an enforcement period, and like any sign, there are occasional violators, and we will do our best to enforce against that, but
And it's another challenge to the best police department in the suburbs, so.
Okay.
So with that, unless there's any more comment, can I get
Mickey's
a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending section 35.11.800 of chapter 35 entitled Motor Vehicles of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code, consistent with the proposal that has been put forward tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion at the board level? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Passes.
6-0, the motion passes. We will also consider the stop signs and the other signs that we talked about tonight. The crosswalk, we'll start working on that. But you now have something, and then there'll be some, maybe every quarter, let us know how it's going. And, you know, we're here every 2 Mondays, usually 2 Mondays a month, and let us know. And thank you for the people, one comment before you all leave.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you for a civil discussion. When people don't agree on something, they can still be civil. We've lost that in this country too many times, so thank you for that tonight.
Good point, Mayor.
All right, that takes us to, let's see, I'm keeping score here. 8 considerations. Consideration of a contract extension for right-of-way cameras with Flock Safety of Atlanta, Georgia, and to authorize an annual purchasing authority of $80,000.
Mayor, I'm going to have Chief of the best suburban police department do this one.
Well, we cleared the room.
He's tied up in volume. Hey, Bill.
Chief, Flock cameras.
Yes, this is the contract extension with the flock cameras that the price, of course, has went up for per unit, basically $1,000 per camera per year. Flock extended an offer to us to stay at the $2,500 per camera for the next 2 years, saving the village significant amount of money. So it is our recommendation to move forward. I'd answer any questions.
Sure, and this was consistent with the proposal you had made before?
Yes, for our cameras, yes.
Any question at the board level? Yes, Tony?
So these cameras are getting installed in those arterial intersections in and out of our village?
Well, we have about approximately 25 of them already installed on the public right-of-way that the village owns.
Okay.
And especially within the last 5 days, they've proved to be extremely effective as a tool for law enforcement,
Yes.
especially for the Burr Police Department.
Thank you.
Yes?
I appreciate it, Chief and his staff and the administrative staff being proactive and going out and securing this favorable pricing so that we can afford to purchase these valuable tools that are necessary to keep our residents safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then can I get a motion to approve a contract extension for right-of-way cameras with Flock Safety of Atlanta, Georgia, and to authorize an annual purchasing authority of $80,000?
So move.
Second. Any further discussion at the board level? Any discussion from the public? Roll call, please.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to 8D. Approval to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance related to swimming pool fences, Z06-2023. Trustee Matal, did you want to speak on this?
Yes, I was reading through it, and I know that even the planning commission was divided in leaving the ordinance to require passive barriers such as a fence versus these active ones, which are the pool covers and electronic fences and all of that. And I prefer the passive obstructions or fences because it's less of a liability for the village. The village doesn't have to monitor them. There are, it's a physical fence and nobody's going to go and fall in a pool. Otherwise, the battery may not work or the electronic device may not work and accidents may happen. And then either the village is liable or someone else is liable. So I think there's really no need to reinvent the wheel when things are safe. And when someone applies for a permit for a pool, they get a fence and it's all done the right way.
So, Evan, what is the ordinance amending the zoning ordinance?
I'm going to have Director Farrell do that presentation.
Thank you.
We're throwing the potato to you.
Yes, just to build off what Trustee Mattel was saying, the Plan Commission was directed to hold a public hearing regarding codifying the fence requirement in the zoning ordinance. Currently, it's found in the building ordinance, And if the building ordinance is to change in the future, then having a fence on the property which has a pool would need to be in the zoning ordinance. So as Trustee Mattel said, it was a split vote, 4-3. 4 affirmative votes needed to pass, and the Plan Commission recommended that no fence be required if a powered safety cover or alarm is being provided. I do have Commissioner Morton here as well tonight, who's happy to answer any questions that you might have about that. But I can say there was, 4 different public hearings where this was discussed, and the commission was very split on whether to require the fence.
So right now, as it stands, we would be the more traditional fence. This is using technology for better safety?
That's a philosophical question. So what they are basically saying is that currently the only regulation is that a fence is required to this building ordinance. This would mean that the zoning ordinance would dictate that no fence is required and only an automatic cover and alarm would then be needed to be present to have a pool installed.
But they could have a fence.
You can always have a fence, it's more of a requirement.
So now you have a
Right
choice.
now, if this were to go through, the permit process would change, that we would not be looking for a fence to be present surrounding a pool. Currently, we do look for a fence to be surrounding a pool.
But you then would, if you don't see the fence, then you have to look for the electronic.
We would we'd basically be taking them at their word, and then at a final approval or a final inspection that the cover and the alarm are working properly. I can tell you that there is not staff manpower to go out and check this thing every 6, 12, whatever months, that it is properly working, and if it breaks, we would have no ongoing knowledge that it was broken,
Correct.
not functioning.
To build off what Administrator Walter said, the Plan Commissioners were split about this because a system such as a powered safety cover is only as good as the person turning it on and putting this powered safety cover on the pool, whereas a fence is something that is always there.
So just a personal observation then. It's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think the traditional fence is certainly easier to monitor. It's more reliable. And so we'll let everybody be heard on this, but I guess I'd be in the minority. I'd be part of the 3 than the 4. But go ahead, Joe.
I have 2 questions. One for Mr. Morton. When it went 4-3, the individuals who were for just having no fence, their philosophy was for what reason? Just for aesthetics?
I don't know if you can hear me better here, Trustee Snyder.
Well, you can give him the microphone, right? And he can come out, right?
The way it ended up splitting, initially the commissioners were more aligned just for a fence alone. But as we understood the technology more and more, there became this opportunity where additional layers of protection could be afforded by considering requiring a motorized cover and intrusion detection. And what that means is when the intrusion detection detects presence of a body in the water, it alerts, and it alerts 7x24. So you have layers of protection where a fence provides you a single layer of protection. Once you scale a fence, you have no other protection. Or if a gate, automatically closing gate, is somehow propped open, you've lost that protection. Where with the motorized cover and the intrusion detection, you had these 2 layers. And so over time, 4 commissioners moved from fence only to supporting motorized cover and intrusion detection. I'd also make one other note about intrusion detection systems in pools. These days, they've started to add an additional layer of protection, and they can sense a swimmer drowning and alert in the case of a drowning. So Trustee Meitel is absolutely correct. Fences have been with us since we had neighbors, and there's plenty of practice and history with fences, and they do provide some degree of safety. I do recall the Plan Commission also did ask the question of liability, and the answer, as I recall coming back to us, there was no increased liability with either adopting fence only or adopting motorized cover or intrusion detection system. So if
Thank you.
there's any other answers I can provide, I'd be happy to.
Though, on top of that, the insurance carriers, been in the insurance business for 44 years, the carriers are leaning more and more to, you have a pool, especially in a special place like Burr Ridge or anywhere you want with a pool. No fence, some carriers won't even consider looking into it. The motorizing technology is wonderful and terrific, and the aesthetic value of having no fence is one thing. The same old thing is, insurance carriers are still losing money at times, and our Midwest is with all the other weather things. Anything not to write something. So the fence issue, I would agree with Trustee Mattal.
So what you're saying is that the traditional way, it's easier to get insurance?
Yes.
New technology, not so easy.
Well, the insurance carrier said, well, I'm glad that Trustee Francis has a motorized thing and all of the intrusion. As soon as he gets his fence around his pool, we'll be happy to give him the better deal that he's looking for.
Yes.
So, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
Don't go away, don't go away. So, I read this in detail, and I also went to ASTM F1346, and I just get the summary page. I don't get the details because they want me to buy the PDF. So, explain to me how this alarm system works. So it's an audible alarm, and it alarms on your phone, in the house.
There's a variety of options, Trustee Francis.
Okay, so let's say I have it alarming in the house, and I went over to Brookhaven and cut through Chasemore, and I'm not home to hear the alarm. Okay, so I'm concerned about that. The motorized cover, yeah, it doesn't work so well when it's 40 degrees out, but my pool's 95 degrees out because I like it nice and warm, so I use it 9 months out of the year. So I just leave it open all the time. And now we have zero protection, nothing. So
Can't argue.
So we're relying on the homeowner to do the right thing day in and day out, and that may not always be the case. The fence, as Trustee Mattal eloquently said, is always there. We have gates with self-closing mechanisms that make it difficult to prop open. Now we're circumventing the safeties. We're circumventing the safety systems that are in place purposely. So that's a deliberate act, and that's always going to happen no matter what. That's with anything. So how this evolved from just getting the zoning ordinance to agree with the building ordinance into covers and alarms and stuff, well, that happens at the Plan Commission, I understand. Those things happen. But I would prefer to stay with what we have in place, especially now that I have this valuable information from Trustee Snyder, who's been in the insurance industry for numerous years and can tell us how difficult it might be for a resident to insure his property against liability such as this. Thank you.
Anyone else? So if I call the question and there's no motion or second, it dies?
Well, in this case, it's just a consideration. You'd be directing us to create an alternate ordinance contrary to what the Plan Commission said. At that point, you'd have to have, would that be a supermajority, Mike, to pass it? No?
It's a text amendment, it's not.
Okay. So it'd be a simple majority just to direct us and then approve the ordinance, basically cloning the building ordinance regulations into the zoning ordinance, basically keeping it status quo.
Why do we have to approve it if it's already approved?
It's in the building ordinance, it's not in the zoning
So,
ordinance.
here's the confusion, and that's why are you asking, is the Plan Commission then asking us to not only move it from building to fences, but also to allow automatic?
Well, you already can have automatic.
Right.
They're saying you should move it from building to zoning, but then have both the building and the zoning be amended to not require fences and only require the automatic cover and or alarms. So if I'm hearing the board, I'm saying I'm hearing support to direct the staff alternatively to have the building ordinance regulation wherein a fence is required to surround a pool be essentially copied into the zoning ordinance.
Correct. Yep.
And leave it.
Copied into the zoning ordinance.
That was actually the original direction of the board, is to do that.
All right. All right, so.
You need a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance.
So, right, we, motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance to, Is there?
I have a question.
Sure.
I didn't come here to speak about this, but
Could I get your name, please?
my name is Chris Cracker. I live at 8500 Walverden Avenue.
Your last name?
Cracker, Kracker. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. Are you discussing the law or the ordinance to have a fence around the yard, or around the yard and around the pool?
Just the pool.
The pool itself. Is it around the yard, does that count as being around the pool, or it has to be around the
It's
actual?
around just the outside patio of the walkway of the pool, or it can surround your entire backyard.
Okay.
We see both
So
all
that,
the
that
time.
is status quo then?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Right.
I have littles,
That's fine. Yes.
If we were to consider making these covers and alarms mandatory in lieu of fences, what about existing pools that don't have these covers? Would those be grandfathered in, or would we require them to update their pools to the revised ordinance if it were to be revised?
Or either or option.
Well, I think that's what the recommendation was, at least the staff report, is that it's either or.
No. You're missing my question here.
It's a hypothetical.
Hypothetically, if we were to require motorized covers and alarms, would existing pools have to comply with that?
That's your choice. You could make them comply with that, or you could grant them
Grandfather,
any pools installed after 2023.
We have hundreds of pools in this village. I don't know. I want to go down that path.
All right, so I'm hearing that the consensus is that we just basically change the, or at least add to the zoning ordinance, the same pool fencing ordinance that's in the building ordinance.
There would be a direction to approve to direct staff to create an ordinance, amending the zoning ordinance to require that any pool built in the village of Burr Ridge have a fence surrounding it, which matches our existing fence regulations.
Perfect. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion at the board level? Any discussion at the public level? Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. Thank you, Trustee Matal, for bringing up that discussion. All right, that takes us to public comment. Number 9, public comment. Is there any public comment? No public comment. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on.
Bottom of the list.
9.
Number 9.
Chris Cracker, 8500 Walverden. I think my topic was not on the agenda tonight, and I'm not sure.
Doesn't have to be.
It's on maybe it's next meeting, but my friends were talking about this weekend, the Costco proposal to put Costco in next to Harvester Park. So, busy mom, I don't know. I just came here because I missed the last meeting and the last topic of interest, so I figured I'd have a chance to speak. I just want to state my opinion on that, to have it be heard here. I'm sure it'll be discussed again later, but with 2 little kids spending almost 5 or 6 days a week at Harvester Park all spring playing baseball, it's a beautiful park. It's charming, it's lovely. They have a busy parking lot with shoppers and traffic and noise and basically, I mean, I don't know what the property could potentially be used for otherwise, but bringing the traffic and bringing in strangers from farther areas around that wouldn't normally come to that area of the park for the recreational purposes that most of us use it for does, make me concerned as a parent that, as I'm watching, it's a big park, the children play, 2 kids run around with their friends. You have to walk from one side of the park to the other just in the play area, every few minutes to monitor them as it is. I feel relatively safe, but as parents, and I know the parents that I know, we all do it, take turns as moms. Oh, have you seen so-and-so? in the last 5 minutes. Where is he? Let me go look and see if I can locate, you know, the two kids. Like I said, I feel relatively safe, but we still keep an eye. I feel like having a Costco right there next to the ballpark, even though I'm sure it'll be a separate entrance over a little bit farther away, the proximity of it might put ideas into the heads of people that are coming from, you know, like I said, not familiar with the area, not regular patrons of the park. See a park there, that's where children come play. It's just an opportunity for risk and child safety concerns that I think are not there today. I don't know what else, you know, like I said, would be proposed or would be thought of. Somebody owns the land and, you know, probably wants to develop it or do something with it, but the idea of a lot of shoppers and long hours and busy hours and traffic, the child safety concern is a concern for me. I know other friends have expressed a concern for their property values, but my concern in particular is the child safety concern. You've got kids walking to the park, maybe bicycling. I've certainly driven down that street that goes to Harvester Park and had 5 kids on bicycles in front of me turning to go down the road. Bringing more traffic into that area for shopping, I don't think is in the best interest of the children. So that's my. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? But
Good evening. My name is Jen McConaughey. I'm at 651 Camelot Drive. I spoke a couple weeks ago at the Plan Commission, and I wanted to pop in tonight just to give a little context to something that I think is coming down the pike to the board, and that is kind of reevaluating the ordinance about unrelated living and kind of redefining what family looks like in Burr Ridge. And the reason that this is coming up is a scenario I have found myself in over the past couple years. I've lived in Burr Ridge for 10 years. I moved to Camelot Drive about 2 years ago. Shortly after moving in, the home across the street from me, I began to realize was unusual. Cars coming and going constantly, a parade of middle-aged men all the time. And the house was it's very shabby. In talking to my neighbors and doing some online research, the home was purchased in foreclosure about 4 years ago, and the man who purchased the home rents rooms to middle-aged men. The owner does not live in the property, and he rents it under the property management name of Fresh Start. So that gives you a little context about the type of people that he's renting to. About a year ago, it became known that a registered sex offender was living in this home, a man who sexually assaulted someone under the age of 12. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and we are living directly across the street. In working with the police department, that man has since moved out. And the reason he moved out is allegedly because the house was too crazy, and he was fearful that he was going to get involved in the craziness of this home. I would estimate at different points there have been as many as 10 men living in this home. My neighbors and I called the police constantly over bizarre behavior, paintball shooting, illegally parking cars, wellness checks on an older man who I think has a traumatic brain injury. Just 2 weeks ago, this home, they painted male genitalia on their skylights that I could see from my driveway. So it's just a home that is really troublesome. This man has no interest in our community. He has no investment here. He has another property in Devon. And I'm hoping the board can take steps to hopefully kind of force this gentleman's hand out and make it undesirable for him to do business here. This house is a cash machine for him. But also prevent this from happening again. Some of the homes here in Burr Ridge are very large. You could rent out rooms, you can make a lot of money for flipping this over. I know the board and the police department and the plan commission have started working together to sort of develop a strategy on how to make sure Burr Ridge stays safe and a desirable community for families. Because right now my neighborhood feels very frustrated and very hopeless about this situation. So I just wanted to give you a little context as to why we're hoping this gets reevaluated, and I'm hoping that the ordinance tightens things up, and so that prevents these homes of really unrelated, undesirable people living in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Anyone else? Yep, come on up.
My name's Mary Bradley. I live at 121 Surrey Lane in Carriage Way. And I got your press release of August 7th. And I'm rising to voice my concern about that, to even have to consider a project of the magnitude of Costco. You know, we only have two major roads that cross I-55, County Line Road in Madison, and that connects your north and your south parts of your village. I hear that, maybe you'll have to change the configuration of County Line Road, but it just doesn't make sense. And so you've got 3 homeowners associations on Carriageway side of the village, of County Line Road. You've got the Loyola Complex, Medical Complex. You've got several village or businesses that are on the frontage road. They all exit via Carriageway Drive. Across the street is Veterans Drive. That stoplight can't handle any more traffic. We already have traffic problems there. So I applaud you guys. I know you got to find something to do with this property, but I don't think a Costco is an appropriate use of that property. So that's my opinion. I'm hoping that you'll remember that when it comes time. I will be there, planning commissions and other stuff too, but I really am very concerned that this shouldn't go any further. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Toronto from 6916 Fieldstone, and I'm also going to talk about the Costco development.
Could you please spell your last name?
Yes, Turano. And if you'll allow me the 5 minutes I think I get in public comment, I'm just going to read into the record our understanding of the development and the concerns so far. And I know that this is a small crowd here today, and I will defend us in so much as it's not on the agenda and we realize we're speaking off agenda. Some of you have attended our homeowner association meetings. You may already know there is a flurry of crazy and chaos going on, at least in the Fieldstone subdivision, perhaps in your subdivision too, but I think that the small but mighty are mounting, and I don't know when the next big push is going to be, but as I said, this is our summary to date. Fieldstone is a custom single-family home neighborhood built in the mid-1990s, located south of Plainfield Road and west of County Line. It is a prestigious subdivision in an esteemed suburb with an envious brand. CNH is an industrial landowner of approximately 110 acres of property located adjacent and immediately south of Fieldstone. CNH has been at the location for approximately 30 years, and prior to CNH, the land was occupied by International Harvester, who sold both its business and its land to CNH. CNH Industrial is an equipment and services company that advances work of agricultural and construction workers. We, the residents of Fieldstone, describe CNH as a passive industrial occupant of the premises. They do not emit any noxious fumes, they don't make any ridiculous noise, they don't have any offensive lighting, and the hours of their coming and going and number of employees is relatively routine and normal, predictable. On or about July 31st of this year, the residents of Fieldstone subdivision individually received a cryptically handwritten addressed envelope that therein was enclosed a rough rendering proposal of an industrial development to the adjacent south, in other words, the CNH property. The proposed development is for a mega Costco distribution center, which would include at least a warehouse store, a distribution center, an office building, and a gas station and/or car center. On August 2nd, a Fieldstone resident personally reached out to the mayor, imploring encouragement that this supposed proposal was not true due to its proximity to the Fieldstone residences, and they were assured that there's discussion about different developments that might take place there. However, in all this time, none of us have heard anything about any other developments being considered, and in fact, after attending the Planning Commission meeting, we learned that there's already an executed purchase contract between CNH and Bridge Industrial, which represents Costco. So with an existing contract on the property, we find it unlikely that any other proposal will surface in the interim. At that August 7th Planning Commission meeting, it should also be noted that Mr. Michael Stratus, who God bless is a volunteer commissioner, was there, but he is a member of Intrepid Properties, and they are the party who brought Bridge Industrial, or brought Costco to Bridge, brought the city together with the proposal, and sat during the meeting here listening most of our opposing comments. And while he assured us he would recuse himself if and when a vote took place, it is absolutely our opinion that, first of all, the transaction is already tainted. He's already been a participant to any and all activity which has brought the parties together to date, and he didn't recuse himself even that evening when there was conflict. I think enough people have been interviewed either by the patch or have spoken even at meetings or had direct conversations with board members, planning commission participants to have been assured that the rough proposal that's been circulated was a supposed leak. There's been a finger pointing that the leak may have been perpetrated by a member of the Park Commission of our own village. Thankfully, we have that proposal, and most of us have been able to act on it to date. It is also, however, a concern that that proposal was even brought to the Parks Commission behind closed doors in what would have been, or could have been, a possible violation of the Open Meeting Act. As members of Fieldstone, we met with our homeowners association at a regularly scheduled meeting on August 8th. Evan was very generous to appear at that meeting, and he responded to the flurry of opposition at that time, distributing, in fact, a one-page list of finding of fact that will need to be answered to move forward. Please rest assured we are diligently working forward on trying to deny those affirmative answers to those findings of fact so that we can stop this. It is undisputed that Fieldstone has already had an increase in criminal activity over the last few years. including car break-ins and home break-ins. A phone call by one of our local residents to the Illinois Department of Transportation has indicated that our village streets do not currently have the capacity to absorb the increase in traffic that a retail warehouse distribution center would create. The rough draft rendering puts the actual big box warehouse literally in the backyard of 45 homes of Fieldstone and on the property line of the intended development. The operation of a retail warehouse will result in the immediate reduction of our home values and the resale potential of each one. The operation of a retail warehouse will result in hundreds of stranger-operated vehicles daily entering and exiting the area immediately behind our homes, and certainly more than hundreds during the holiday season, as many of us have passed 22nd Street with their police patrol of their Costco entrance during the holiday season. The operation of a retail warehouse that also hosts a gas station poses a flammability risk. The operation of a retail warehouse will create more litter and pollution in an area where we in Fieldstone already struggle to maintain the integrity of our local water areas and ponds. It'll likely increase the additional activity of criminals, increase cut-through and random drive-by traffic in our subdivision, possibly causing accidents and injury, particularly to our children, pets, and residents who use the streets for recreational bike riding, dog walking, etc. It'll create more noise with the operation of tractor trailers, particularly refrigerator trucks, that make their deliveries primarily in the middle of the night. It will create offensive lighting in our own backyards that shine into our bedrooms and our family rooms. It'll be an eyesore in an area where homes are intended to be beautiful. It will impair our use of Harvester Park, the crown jewel of Burr Ridge, where our children have felt safe and hosted their sporting activities. And overall, the operation of a retail warehouse would diminish the quiet enjoyment of our homes. The residents of Fieldstone, as well as additional residents of Burr Ridge, are intent on stopping this particular development. We acknowledge we cannot pick our neighbor, but an ideal neighbor to us would be a mixed-use development that included condos, townhomes, and single-family residences. Additional ideas have been to have the municipality consider the construction of an 18-hole municipal-run golf course. We've even done the research to make sure that 110 acres is sufficient. Coincidentally, it is. We lobbed the idea of trying to recruit luxury residences for an over 55 community, where at least the homes would be maintained and they could be resident occupied and hopefully maintenance free. If the zoning has to remain industrial, then what we encourage the village to consider is another passive industrial occupant. We heard the mayor tonight tell Chase Moore that we want to do what you want to do, and what we want to do is stop this proposal now.
I'm here again. Lee Chai, 6852 Fieldstone Drive. I mean, the proposed Costco will be at my backyard. At my backyard, exactly my backyard, not that far from my home, my property. That's what it is. We're gonna see, I counted the parking lot there is flat like a 130, 140 parking spot. I went to Costco, just regular day, it's full already. It's full already. And beside that, there's a criminals for sure. For that Costco in what is 22, not a criminal with the people, it's criminal, start with the city already. I think it's the mayor or some officials, they collect the traffic lights, tickets, share the tickets. Because there is a traffic only turn on right from the rightmost line. I get caught during the pandemic, $100. I cannot go to the court to defend myself because of the pandemic. So I paid. Later on, they said the mayor or some administrator, they share the tickets. So that's what I'm saying. We get this big box. It's not only draw some critical, the criminals from other place. We're going to draw some corruption from our inside. I like the mayor said that, we like to solve this in a very civil manner. I like that way, we are very civil, but sometimes we are very emotional. Okay, excuse me for that. I was come to this country in 1985 as a student on campus. At that time, we don't lock our house. This is a multiple family house, rented by students. We do not lock our cars. And later on, we have to lock. Do you think lock the car, lock the house is uncivilized? Because we get attacked. We have to come here to protect ourselves. Not only that, when we go to grocery, we pick up grocery. At the time we are student, we don't have a car, foreign student. I come to this country with $49.50. And the country opened arm, welcomed me. I did my share. I was, a safety engineer at Ford. I'm the site impact expert. I'm the guy. Then I went to Boeing. We built the 787. I was in charge of the testing. I personally stopped twice of the first flight. So I did my share. Okay, I love this country. At that time, we go grocery, we don't have a car. Okay, just come out of the grocery store, people stop the car, pick us up, send us home. We want to do that to the same. My wife always said, all these people, we want to do the same. But the police department said, you cannot do that. You can take people, you cannot sit in people's car. So is that uncivilized? We want to be civilized, but the things force us to do something to protect us. And we have a petition by the association. Till today, we have 120 people signed in our subdivision. We have 120 signed. We have, it's still going. And during the lunchtime, it's 100, and now I just checked, 120 something. Yeah, only started yesterday. And totally, how many families in that subdivision? 126. 126. 126, now at this time, 122 out of 126, they don't like the idea. They said, no Costco, please. Thank you. Okay? We want to solve it in a very civil way, as you said. I like that. I try to control my emotion. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else?
She spoke earlier.
You spoke already, but go ahead.
I can't talk again.
You,
I'm sorry.
yes, you can. Yes, you can. But please be brief.
Okay, I know it's getting late.
Could you
I need to
repeat your
go
name
too.
again, please?
My name is Chris Cracker. I'm at 80, with a K, both. I'm at 8500 Walridon Avenue. And just to add, it's hard to find time to come here, and thank you for listening and having this forum that we can speak our opinion. I lived in the city of Chicago for 17 years. I'm from Michigan, lots of green space there, a rural community. The city of Chicago, we left, like many people do when we had kids, and we wanted a place where our kids could ride their bikes in the street and go to the neighborhood parks. Green space was important for us. I've lived in downtown Chicago, near Millennium Park, beautiful park, Grant Park, Lincoln Park. I've lived in Wicker Park, I've lived in, on the
So
west
what,
side.
can you please get to your point, because we really do
Well,
need to move on.
Okay, since we've moved here, they've built more parking spaces around our school, our elementary school. In the name of development, there was beautiful green space. Now there's less. I know you can't stand in the way of development, but we came out of the city this far to find some green space. Harvester Park is wonderful. To put a Costco in next to it, there are other great ideas. I like the idea of a golf course. We go to Flat Creek. We spend a lot of money on lessons there. Having a golf course in Burr Ridge that maybe we could do lessons at with the kids, that would be great. We take a lot of advantage of Harvester Park. We would benefit from that as well. We're golfers as adults as well, lots of people. Anyway, I like that other people are voicing their opinions about possible other opportunities to use the land. Those seem like good ideas too. Hope you consider those other options. Do anything that you can to stop this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll be very brief. I know you guys are exhausted, so I appreciate your time. My name is Sam, first name, last name B as in boy, A-S-S-A-L-I. I reside at 6882 Fieldstone. I have been in Fieldstone for 13 years. I have enjoyed it immensely. We've had a fantastic neighbor, CNH. Beautiful neighbor. They come in at 7, they're quiet, they park their car, they go in, they do their thing, no emissions, no problems, and they leave at 5. Weekends are great, parking lot's empty. I'm glad the chief of police is here today, because one thing I'm very concerned about as a resident of Burr Ridge in the Fieldstone subdivision is crime. My subdivision has been burglarized. The chief of police can attest to that several times. We see police cars all the time. Potentially bringing in a Costco is a disaster. I'm worried about crime. I'm worried about noise. I'm worried about lights. This is completely unacceptable. I am very open to many other, like the young lady said, golf course is great, another tenant like CNH is great, mixed use development, but I've been at a Costco, I've been a member of Costco for 20 years myself. Every time I go to Costco, it is a nightmare. And I couldn't imagine being, my backyard will be a Costco. And to me, that would kill my property values. I'm worried about noise, crime, and I urge the trustees here today, we're open to discussion, as the mayor said, we're open to discussion. It's not like we want, empty whatever, but to bring in a big box retailer like Costco in the midst of a luxury residential neighborhood is absolutely unacceptable. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? It is not our practice to comment on public comment because we don't. It's your time. But I will break that for this, for tonight. There is no proposal formally submitted to the Village of Burr Ridge for any development on the CNH property. The good neighbor, your CNH neighbor, I'm sure is a good neighbor. It is their property, not our property. We have to consider any proposal that's formally presented to the board, to the Plan Commission and the board, to the village. There hasn't been one yet. There was a contingent contract that CNH entered with Bridge, and that's a proposal that we have been trying to discuss. It is not formally, however, been brought forward. So talk to CNH. They have the property. They want to sell it. And they're not, we can't make them sell it for any particular price. It's 110 acres in DuPage County in Burr Ridge. To them, it's a very valuable piece of property. So if you have ideas that they will be interested in, by all means, submit it to them. We can't tell them what to do. We can set some limitations, but there is no formal proposal submitted to the Village of Burr Ridge. When it is submitted to us, we will vet it and have all the public hearings, and we've now put a special page on the website just for that property because it's so huge. So please follow it, and you'll be all told when we will have public hearings on this. Nothing has been submitted to the village to decide. Thank you. All right. No, we're going to move on tonight. You can call me tomorrow. I'll be glad to talk to you. Okay? Sure. Sure. Okay, that takes us to reports and communications from village officials. Anybody? Anita?
Yes, I'll just, I want to welcome the newest restaurant in Burr Ridge, Pella's Signature. They had a soft opening over the weekend. It's where culinary artistry meets Mediterranean mastery. It was truly a nice experience. They have a very nice Four Seasons room, and their food was also very authentic. They will be serving breakfast and dessert, so we're looking forward to more nice experiences for the residents at Pella Signature. Also, Mecca Moves, which is our 5K or 1K, is on Saturday, September 16th. The kickoff is at 8 a.m. It will be from Bridewell. It will be on the intersection of Bridewell and Burr Ridge Parkway. This is our wellness initiative, and we'd like to promote fitness, especially after a really nice summer. This would kick off the fall events, so hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? No? Just a couple of brief comments. I did want to bring one thing. There was a road rage incident that our police department was called in. Cameras were, and footage from the local camera near the McDonald's was used by our police department to solve the crime. Person was arrested, and I think it was bonded out on $600,000 worth of bond. So, an example of the police reacting quickly to a road rage incident, using the technology that was available and film that was available, acting. I believe it was Detective Cervenka watched the video, and through his efforts and the rest of the police department, we were able to make an arrest, and Berlin will be prosecuting the individual. So kudos to the police department for using the technology that was available and catching this person. I really don't have anything else. Nothing? Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn and to go into executive session to discuss purchase or lease of real estate for the use of the public body under 5 ILCS 122 parentheses 5.
2C5.
2C5, thank you.
I do, we have one additional item that we're asked to come to this meeting tonight to discuss a declaration of easement on 150 Shore.
Yeah, it was already approved.
It was approved under consent, so you're already good to go. Yes, sir. Have a great evening.
Okay. It was on the consent agenda. All right, so that's, we have a motion to adjourn and go into executive session for the reasons stated on the record. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. We are in executive session.